Sahana bhavatu sahano punatu saha viryam karavavahai tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
I have a question, Janki.
Yeah, Kennedy?
In the last class, you said when you were talking about faith, faith, faith,
Faith.
faith, faith, F-A-I-T-H, faith. Can you hear
Faith.
me? Faith. Faith is ignorance. But
faith exists in ignorance.
Yeah, but I was confused that when you also said that I have faith that every Saturday there is a class at 10:30. So that means I have the knowledge of that particular class, right? Then how am I ignorant?
You have faith that there will be class next Saturday. How do you know there will be class next Saturday? You don't know this.
But
You have faith it will be there.
I have knowledge that I have been attending classes regularly. Therefore, I know that there will be a class. So wouldn't that be equal to knowledge?
Kinnari, you were attending Varishtha class, remember?
Yes.
You were attending it every Saturday. You were sure next Saturday we will have a class, did we?
Yes.
So that's faith because you didn't know. I mean, yeah, all of us at any one particular Saturday knew that next Saturday we will be studying Vedanta Treatise and we will be coming to Varishtha, and we knew all this. And yet none of that happened. Suddenly, one day, no class at Varishtha. Suddenly we were on Zoom and whatever happened, our life changed. So anything about the future is always a matter of faith. You don't know it yet. However, it is not a blind faith. So yes, it did happen once at Varishtha, though we expected the class to be there, it wasn't. But the rest of the time it was, because it was not a blind faith. It was a reasoned faith. A reasoned faith that told us that, all along we've had it, we don't cancel classes, so that there's extremely high probability of having the class next week too.
Okay, so knowledge would be pertaining to the past, but for the future, I am ignorant. I don't know whether it will happen or not.
You don't know for sure.
Okay.
But it's still not a blind faith.
Okay. Thank you.
Incidentally, a lot of people have been asking me whether they, how they can ask questions about the foundation course. So for all those who had that question, you can ask your question in the other classes too, because since that is it is a very, very strict schedule you are following. Unlike these classes, which are more, we can take it as it comes. But that we have to do it in 4 months. So, and we have to cover that much portion. So it's difficult to do it there. So you can ask in the other classes also, because surely that has been covered in the other class. But of course, at the beginning of the class, not in the middle. So we'll take it as a general question as we do any question. Yeah, Tinky?
So, Hariom Janki ji, in the session, I think the first one, you had said in any experience, the subject, that is I, is always the same, but the object, the other one keeps changing. So I can control myself, but not the other. But I also keep changing, isn't it? I
Yeah.
meaning the personality. I don't mean the self.
Yes, they're true. But we didn't say that. That is why it's very important to very carefully follow what
Right.
philosophy says.
Yeah.
We're not saying the subject stays the same, and neither are we saying the object differs. Like just as you have stayed the same, your husband is also the same, right? So it's not like the object differs. What we're saying is what is common to every experience is the subject. It's a common thing. So whatever you do on the subject will have its implication on all experience. So you change the word common to same, and then you get into these problems.
Mhm. Is the common. Okay. That same is the thing that is causing. Thank you, Janaki.
So, it's a great example that Tinky has given us, because this is what we do in philosophy. We make some change like this, and then we go off on some tangentials. So this is a great example for everyone to remember, and we should say thank you to Tinky for this, because it's not always easy to come up with examples, but these kind of things give us good examples. You just change one word in philosophy and you change the whole thing. That is
So
why very, very interestingly, there are three huge philosophies in India. There are more, of course, but broadly speaking, there are three main philosophies in India: Dvaita, Vishishta Advaita, and Advaita. And the interesting thing about this is, to prove their philosophy, they all use the same text. They don't say, we believe in some other text. They use the same text. So it's a very interesting thing. That's why in How Do You Know What You Know, you studied how much language plays a part in the way we think. The fallacies that language itself brings to us. So very important, that when you write your notes, you write what is said, specifically what is said. Write the same sentence down. When you're doing your thinking, you can think whatever you want. But when you're writing your notes, write the same sentence down. Avoid what we normally do, making some kind of summary while you're hearing. Don't do that. Write the sentence down.
So I think also misunderstood that about experience. Life is a anubhav dhara, series of experiences. The kind of life we lead is determined by our experiences. You said good experiences, good life, bad experiences. But what is the role of perception in that? Because the same experience, some people are unaffected, others are, badly affected. So is it our experience, or is it our perception of the experience that determines the kind of life?
Now think about what you're saying. Perception happens how?
With the senses, the mind.
Right. You're using it not in the sense of senses at the moment. You are using it in the sense of the mind at the moment. You have just realized that we use the word perception for senses.
Yeah.
Okay. So you are not currently using it in that sense. You are currently using it in the sense of the way you see things.
Yes.
Not the object that you are seeing.
Right.
Yeah. So this interpretation, this kind of interpretation comes from where?
It comes from our, it could be either from the mind or from the intellect, generally from the mind if we are more,
Okay,
emotional.
fine. Whose mind, or correct, whose mind or whose intellect?
The personality. We think of, like me or somebody, correct. X, Y, Z.
Yeah, so use the language. You're following a certain class, right? So what was the language of that class? What is that personality called when you are talking about what life?
Talking of the mind and intellect, the interpretation of the, can I call it Jiva? I don't know if it's appropriate here. Prakriti.
No, it's not. Can anyone help Tinky? Whose mind and intellect?
Individual.
The subject.
The subject. Very good. The subject. So that's why we are saying whatever you do to the subject is common across the board. Did you get it or not? What you are calling perception is only an adjustment in the subject, which is what we're talking about. Every experience is made up of a subject and object. The physical object may be exactly the same, but what is your interpretation of it will make the difference.
It makes the difference.
So therefore, the subject and therefore the subject's mind and intellect is the most important part of the experience. Clear now?
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Meera, please can you repeat the explanation about Tinky's question? I did not follow. Okay, so Meera, where are you? Meera, I can't see you. Ah, there you are. Meera, Tinky said, you were there in the foundation course? So almost, I mean, all the names seem so familiar to me. I feel like everybody was there in the foundation course. So I hope that is so. And is there anyone who was not in the foundation course and therefore has no idea what we're talking about? I hope it is all under control.
I wasn't there, Jan.
Sorry?
I wasn't there.
Oh, you're not in the foundation course? Okay, so this much was clear.
Even
because
I was
probably
not
studied
there.
this.
Yeah.
Even I wasn't there, Jan.
Okay. Next time we do the foundation course, please everybody join the foundation course because it is the most basic thing you should be knowing in Vedanta, and it's the most systematic way of studying it. And once you have your foundational ideas correct, forget Vedanta, every other book will become clearer.
Sure.
So I hope you are able to understand so far. So let's see now. Tinky's question had been about what we had discussed there, and we have also discussed in Vedanta Treatise, which is thank you, Priya. Which is also that life is made up of experiences. Experiences are made up of subject and object. All of you all are familiar with this. Now, the important point to understand in that is that the subject is common to all our experiences, but the object could be differing. We will be in touch with so many things, right? We'll be in contact with so many things, but the subject is common. Now, what happened in Tinky's case, very interestingly, she wrote this down, but she changed the word common to the word same. The subject is the same. So when you say subject is the same, then she naturally has come now to this part of the text which says the subject is changing. So she sees a contradiction. What are you saying? In one class you say subject is same, in one class you say subject is changing. But same over there meant it is common to all the experiences. It did not mean it is unchanging. Is that clear? So we changed the word same and put it back to common. Just common. I mean, I don't even know what was the exact word or used. Maybe the word same was used, in which case it's good she brought it to our attention. Or maybe the word common was used. I don't know which word was used. But the point that was being made is that it is common to all our experiences. It is the same in all our experiences in the sense it is the common factor in all our experiences. Not that it is unchanging in our experiences, because that we know is not true. The subject changes. Okay? Anita. Anita, after a long time I'm seeing you. You had mentioned that all our vasanas make up our swadharma. Yes, correct. I am a little confused. A person may have a vasana for gambling or drinking, but his swadharma could be musician. Is being a musician. Where is the connection? Okay, so his swadharma is a drinking, gambling, musician. His Swadharma is not only musician. It is drinking, gambling, musician, maybe gourmet musician, whatever. Everything put together makes a certain type of personality. So when we say it in class, it is a common thing to say, okay, your vasanas for gambling, so you're a gambler. Your vasanas for music, you're a musician, or you have vasanas for painting, so you're a painter. That's only a simplification because nobody has only one vasana, right? So we have a bulk of vasanas, and that is like maybe he has maybe 80% for music, and then he has 5% for gambling, then 5% for drinking, 5% for any other vice you want to give him. But all of that put together will make up his Swadharma. Means his nature. Swadharma means nature. So his nature is made up of all that. Like you, for instance, you are in, say, content writing. Your Swadharma is content writing. But you're also interested in women's causes. You're also interested in Vedanta. All of it put together in their particular proportions makes up your Swadharma and makes up Anita. Anita is all of that put together. Okay?
Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, so where were we? We were studying similar ideas, what we have been studying in the foundation course, which is that the human being, we're studying the human being, the human composition. The human being is the body, mind, intellect, enlivened by the self. Now, big question here is, we know our body.
Janki's screen is frozen. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think she lost connection. She'll come back.
Maybe she hasn't realized.
So till she comes back, if you all want me to display the text just as a revision of what we did last time, then I can do that. This was the last paragraph that we did.
Hari Om everyone. Janki ji is just connecting on her phone right now. Her Wi-Fi is gone.
Okay, thank you.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, Janki ji.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. Um, where were we? We were on discussing. I don't know, where did you all hear up to? Did you all hear up to the about where did you all hear up to? The human being is made up with of the body, mind, intellect, and living by the self. That much you all had heard?
Yes.
Yes, yes, yes.
So the big question now is, what is to establish that there is the self or any conception of God? So there are various conceptions of God. There are conceptions such as God made the world. There are conceptions such as God is writing out your destiny. And there's a whole bunch of ways in which you could possibly, what should I say, think about God. That he does good or he does bad or something or the other. Now, whether you claim that he does good or whether you claim that he does bad, whether you claim that he created the world, such conceptions of God are relatively, how should I put it, limited, because all action comes from
Desire.
desire. Desires come from vasanas. Vasanas means ignorance of God, right? It is avidya, it is the ignorance of the self. So how is it possible that God can be given ignorance of the self? How is that possible? So any kind of action is I don't know, Meera, whether you want to have faith in that or not, but entirely up to you. But any kind of conception of God is necessarily limited. But the kind that gives him actions is more limited, because action means desire, desire means vasana, Vasana means ignorance of the self. So these kind of conceptions are not even discussed really in Vedanta. But what about the concept that God is the enlivener of action? That God, though not directly concerned with action, is the power behind every action. How about a conception such as that? Would that be correct? So first thing we understand about the concept itself is that God is beyond concepts. It is not something that we can understand.
Janki-ji, your instrument is keeping on moving.
My arms are hurting holding this phone up. If I put the phone down, this is what you'll see. So I
Janki-ji,
realize this is not working.
we-
So I am raising it.
It is okay.
Janki-ji, we could keep the video off. It won't trouble you.
But how do we get that back? Let's see now. How do we put this video off? Okay. All right. Makes it easier. Makes my life easier. And I suppose now your thing is not moving so much. Can you just find out from Farooq whether the computer can come back or what is the matter with it? Why has it left us high
Yes.
and dry like this? So, the concept of God, what a time for there to be interruptions, because you really need to concentrate on a concept such as this. The concept of God, any concept of God is limited, because God is the enlivener of action, is the enlivener of emotion, is the enlivener of thought. So no thought, much less a feeling or an action, can contain the Lord. The Lord is infinite. Thought by nature is finite. And hence, it must definitely be that thought cannot contain that infinite, cannot contain the Lord. Is so much clear that God is beyond intellectual comprehension, is so much clear. Now, I can't even see if you all give me a thumbs up or something. Is so much clear?
Yes, Janaki.
Okay, so point. So first point is God is beyond intellectual comprehension. Point one. Point two, if it is beyond intellectual comprehension, then how are we supposed to posit it and work towards it? Then that will become impossible. How are you going to posit something? And if you don't posit it, how are you going to work towards it? So that creates a problem for us. If we have to achieve that state, we have to think something about it. So how do we think about it? Is with some kind of indications. These things that we are studying about the self are not an explanation of the self, but an indication for us to even, what should I do? Even conceive it, or to say, oops, okay. Are you all having a really tough time getting interrupted in? Thank you. In this first point we had was that God is inconceivable. Second point we had was that, but we still have to reach him, no? If you say he's inconceivable and don't think about him, how will you reach him? There's only one way to achieve something and you have to think about it. So we have to have some way of thinking about it. So we must have the least limited ways of thinking about it. You can have very limited ways, right? Or you can have less limited ways. Very limited ways such as, my God is my friend and he hates you, and if you don't like him the way I like him, then he will kill you. These are very limited ways of thinking of him. But still you are thinking of him. If you can think of better ways, in less limited ways, that would be better. That would be more conducive towards spiritual growth, let us say. So, how? We try and posit some things that will give us some kind of indication that it exists. When we start talking like that, then everybody says, oh, no, now you want us to take it on faith. To which he said that we are really taking most things in this world on faith. So that should not be an objection for taking this as well. So, but let's see, what can we do with that faith? We make that faith a reasoned faith. A reasoned faith is a sort of oxymoron. What is a reasoned faith? A reasoned faith means a faith which is based on certain corroboratory evidence. It is, faith necessarily has to be without knowledge. So how do you reason where you have no knowledge? You reason not on what you don't know, but you reason on what you do know. That means you take corroboratory evidence. Okay, so far so good, everyone.
Yes, sir.
All right. Then next step. Excuse me for a minute. In the meanwhile, you can just think of what we have done so far. So how are we going to get some corroboratory evidence for God? Tough. So they have given us something. First one is that we claim, all of us say, this is my body, my mind, my intellect. Whenever you use the pronoun my, the possessive pronoun my, it indicates that there is a possessor and a possessed. When you say this is my car, there is you, the possessor, and there is a car. The car is different from you. That's what the pronoun my means. So you say this is my spouse, my child, my car, my home, my teacher, my subject, whatever you say. The object, the possessed is different from the possessor. Now, very surprisingly, we also say my body. When you use something like my body, you have segregated two things. There is an I who's a possessor of this body and the body. You also say my mind, my intellect, which is all very strange if all this was you. So we seem to intuitively, and on all known languages, seem to have this possessor-possessed relationship with our own equipment. This should give us pause. Why am I saying that? Why is everybody saying that? Why has language been used like this It's not just me. I didn't make this up. Everybody has done that. Everybody, in all the languages I know, how it works. Strange. It should give us pause for thought. Then the other thing that should give us pause for thought is we are also noticing that this equipment of ours, this body, mind, and intellect, is constantly changing. But there's a law of physics. You can recognize change only in the presence of an unchanging factor. Everything you know in the world is changing, right? Everything. You're seeing your body, mind, and intellect also change. So where is that unchanging factor by which you are perceiving this change? What is that? By what knowledge are you saying that my body has changed, or my mind has changed, or my intellect has changed? Because if everything is changing, then you should not perceive that change, isn't it? If two trains are moving at exactly the same speed, you will not perceive change. You will think that both are steady. If you are in one train and you can only see another train and they're both moving at the same speed, you think both are steady. If that train is just a little faster, then the change that you perceive will be just a little bit. Unless you can see something steady, such as you look the other side on electricity poles or something which are steady, you don't know the speed of your train. So if you are so confident about the changes in your own system, what is that unchanging factor that you are somehow connecting this to, that is telling you of all that change? Another thing that we have to sort of think of. So we've got two reasons, two ways of thinking about it. Now let us do the third one. Okay. So who will read the next paragraph?
I can read.
Please do.
Yet another corroboratory evidence of an eternal being is the persistent existence of the I in everyone's life. You use the pronoun I liberally without realizing its existence, its significance. The I runs through your entire lifespan. You claim, I am rich or poor, I am a boy or girl, I am young or old. You also say, I am well or ill, I am happy or unhappy, I am brilliant or dull. The same I runs through the equipments and their experiences. I perceive sense objects, I feel emotions, I conceive thoughts. Furthermore, it traverses the realms of the waking, dream, and deep sleep. In the waking state, you claim, I am an athlete, waker. In the dream state, I am an invalid, dreamer. And in the deep sleep, I am nothing, sleeper. These experiences are diverse, heterogeneous, but there is a homogeneous entity holding them together, the I pervading to the three states of consciousness, percolating every physical, emotional, and intellectual experience that should provide enough evidence for any rational human being to investigate its presence and purpose in his life. So the I is present in every experience that we have, whether we are awake or dreaming or sleeping. And it's the only common thing in all the experiences. So that should be enough evidence to make us think of that unchanging thing in us, the self.
Okay.
Did I miss something?
Okay, let's put this in another way. Omkar, are you here? Can you write on the screen?
I'll try.
Yeah, can you write what I'm saying? Write I.
Give me a second.
Can I write on these screens?
Yes.
Okay, great. Can you say I? Make a big I. Very good. Okay. Now write equal to sign and write wake up. Then a waker R. Then write I is equal to dreamer. And then I is equal to deep sleep. Per ER. Okay, so here we have, very good. I is equal to waker, I is equal to dreamer, I is equal to deep sleeper. Can anyone tell me what's wrong with what is written over here as a mathematical formula?
The waker cannot know the dreamer. And the
Not
dreamer,
know. The question is not about knowing. What is the question? Question about what is wrong with this mathematical formula?
Waker is not equal to dreamer, or dreamer is not equal to deep sleeper.
Very good. Okay, or the only way very good. But the only way you can make it right is you can say, if I is equal to waker, if I is equal to dreamer, if I is equal to deep sleeper, then it must necessarily follow that.
All of them are equal.
Sorry?
All of them are equal.
Waker.
That waker is equal to dreamer is equal to deep sleep. Isn't it? Simple math. I mean, like really simple math. Because if you say I is equal to X, I is equal to Y, and I is equal to Z, then the only way it can follow is if X, Y, and Z are equal. Correct? Anyone is clear about this much? Now the question is it true that the waker is equal to the dreamer is equal to the deep sleeper?
Yes.
What? How yes? In the waker,
Yes.
in the waking state, you could be what he has given an example. What has he said? You could be an athlete. That same athlete can dream that he's a sick person, he's in bed, he's handicapped. And that same person goes into deep sleep and will claim himself that I am nothing. I am zero. I'm not an athlete, I'm not a challenged person, I am nothing. The waking experience is entirely different from the dream experience, which is entirely different from the deep sleeper experience. And yet you, the individual, at the moment you will say, I am Jyoti. In the dream, you will say, I am Usha. And in the deep sleep, you will say, I am nothing. You're fully convinced at that point that you are that thing. 3 different points. 3 different convictions. As the waker, you are a person sitting in Vedanta class, but now all this is getting too much for you. So you doze off and you become that person visiting Queen Elizabeth in Buckingham Palace. And then it's still very, very boring. So you go into deep sleep and you become nothing. Totally convinced at all 3 points about your identity. He is asking you, since you are saying I to all these things, which one? Which one do you think is the real I? You will say now, no, Jyoti is the real I. But who is saying Jyoti is the real I? Think carefully. Who is saying Jyoti is the real I?
The waker.
The waker.
The dreamer will say, Usha is the real I. As long as you are in the waking state, you are convinced you are Jyoti. And nothing can change that conviction. But the same conviction, you could dream, I am Usha, and you have the same conviction. And in that dream, if you had 5 different names and 5 different identities, you would still have the same conviction about they being you. Should that not make us think something? Should that not make us ask this question? Every time I'm changing what I think I am, when I say I am tall or short or handsome or ugly or fair or dark, I am saying it on the assumption that I am this body. When I say things like I'm happy, I'm sad, I'm jealous, I'm loving, I'm hating, I can't stand you, I'm saying it on the assumption that I'm the mind. If I say I'm intelligent, I'm dumb, I've got the IQ of Einstein, or I have the IQ of an idiot, whatever in the world I say, I claim to be the body, I claim to be the mind, I claim to be the intellect, and yet these 3 are different. I claim so much. On what basis? Isn't it interesting for us? Just think about it. That's all you have to do. That's what he's trying to say. These experiences are diverse, heterogeneous. But there is a homogeneous entity holding it together. The I which pervades it all. So the big question is, what is that I? What is that?
So it's beyond all the 3.
Yeah, beyond all the 3, or we don't know.
Or any.
Yeah, we are not saying anything in particular. What we are saying is
Brahman.
Brahman is like saying X. Saying Brahman, God, Atman, Vishnu, Shiva, Allah, Father in heaven. We're saying X because you don't know any of these things. We're not making a claim, we're asking a question. The deal of philosophy is learning to ask a question. It's not about making claims, it's about asking a question. It's not about surety, it is about thinking. So,
Absolute consciousness.
Sorry?
Absolute consciousness. Or super conscious or absolute consciousness.
These are all words. We don't know what it means. What does absolute consciousness mean? We don't know. Because absolute consciousness means consciousness of everything. Now, consciousness of everything means what? Your thought is never going to be capable of absolute consciousness. It's not possible. So these are just words. We can throw around the words, but it doesn't answer anything. So the philosopher always asks a question. rather than making a statement. Ajay, can we say excessive identification with doership? If you say excessive identification with doership, the question is who is identifying? Excessive identification with the body, mind, intellect, okay, fine. But who is this who's identifying? What is that which identifies? That would be the question.
So Janki ji, if the use
One
of
second, Omkar. Ajay, you're okay?
Yes, just a quick follow-up. Wouldn't it then be the waker, the dreamer, and the deep sleeper, all three are identifying with doership over here in their respective states?
Yes, correct. So that's the whole point, right? That in one state, you're saying, I am Ajay. In one state, you're saying, I'm Omkar. And in a third state, you're saying, I'm nothing. So philosophy says, make up your mind. Who are you? Because the what did you say? Excessive identification with Ajay exists only as long as Ajay exists. But when Ajay goes to sleep, this excessive identification is with something else. So who is identifying? What is happening here? How can you, the same person, at one stage say that I am Ajay? I run my business. I'm doing well in life. And at the same time, maybe 5 minutes later, say, I am Vijay. I'm unemployed. I'm not doing well in life. If somebody who's watching both, they'll say, make up your mind. Are you Ajay or are you Vijay? And then, maybe 10 minutes later, you feel nothingness. Even if the identification is the same, who is that identifier? How are you changing your identity so much? With so much belief. Now, it's difficult for us to understand while we're in the waking state how strongly we believed we were that dreamer. We forget. We forget how much and how strongly we believed in that thing, whatever it is we dreamt about. If you have some very vivid dream, try and remember that. That time I was so sure. Suppose I dreamed that a tiger is chasing me in my dream. At that time, when that tiger was chasing me, how vividly did I feel this? How frightened did I get? How much did I crave to save myself from that tiger? 1 second later, no tiger, no fear, nothing. Now I'm sleeping peacefully in my bed. Same identification. Should that not give us pause to think?
Individual soul or individual consciousness?
I don't know why Krishnan Kannamurti you're using Krishnamurti, why you're using so many different words. The point is, please go beyond these words and ask that question. There isn't an answer here. Understand the question, because the question is the quest. What is the point of being in an educational situation when the quest is missing? So we are not giving answers. We're not, conditioning ourselves with so many words that we don't understand. We're trying to understand a fundamental thing. Who am I? You say, I am Brahman. I am Atman. I am absolute consciousness. It's like saying, I don't know. If you don't know what any of these things mean. You're okay, Ajay?
Yes, thank you, ma'am.
Omkar?
So, Janki, I've asked this before, but I'm still not clear. Is that the I in a waker is the more permanent I versus the I in the dreamer? Because the I in the waker can remember the I in the dreamer. For example, I if I dreamt that I was Mr.
Give
Clinton
an
or whatever.
example, it's clear. The I can remember, the waker can remember the dreamer. Clear, everybody understands that.
But not necessarily the other way around, which is the dreamer remembers the waker. So isn't the waker the more permanent I? And
According to whom?
That's a fact. I mean, according to, I wake up every morning to be the Omkar I was before I went to sleep. But
And what
I
does
don't
the-
dream. I don't dream the Mr. Clinton I was last night in my dreams. Every
Take
time
one thing at a time. You can't take everything. Take one. Firstly, it is more permanent. Let us take that one. Is it more permanent? It is more permanent to the waker. The waker says, I was in a small time in a dream, but all the rest of the time I'm me. What does the dreamer say? Dreamer doesn't recognize the existence of Omkar. The dreamer says, I am Prithvi. And who is this Omkar? Never heard of. Okay, so as long as the waker exists, he believes in his permanence. As long as the dreamer exists, he believes in his permanence. So which one is longer? At that point when you are that, you believe that only that exists. Both the waker as well as the dreamer. If you're a waker, you will say this is existing. If you're the dreamer, you will say that is existing. Point one. Point two. You claim that every time you come back to the same Omkar, but the dream is a different one. When you claim to come back to the same Omkar, please understand that when Prithvi, your alter ego in the dream, when Prithvi goes to sleep, he can also dream the same thing, right? Can you not, as Prithvi, say that, oh, last night it was my birthday, I kept some cake in the fridge, and it's morning, now for morning breakfast, I will eat that cake. Can you not say all that in the dream? Does that mean that there was really a yesterday? Can we take the dreamer's word for it? Just as now you say, last Saturday I had class. Really? How do you know that this isn't a dream that started right now? Does the dreamer not have a memory? Does the dreamer not have a past? As Prithvi, were you not 40 years old? Did you not have parents there? Did you not have wife, children? No, not grandchildren, but whatever. Didn't you have a birthday? Didn't you have a school, a college? Who is saying all this? While you are in that state, you think so. How do you know? Okay, Omkar, you don't need to say anything to that. There is no answer. We will study this in greater depth when we come to that. At the moment, all that we have to understand is you are saying I is equal to uneven quantities. Therefore, your comprehension of I cannot be correct. I is equal to waker, I is equal to dreamer, I is equal to deep sleeper. These three are unequal. So how can three unequal things be equal to the same I? How is that even possible? Therefore, you have to question what really then is I. What they are saying is the I is something else. It is neither the waker, nor the dreamer, nor the deep sleeper. Okay, so that's enough food for thought for one morning. Hari Om.
Hari Om, Janki ji.
Thank you.
Hari Om.
Hari Om.
Thank you,